Admiral Jake Morrison stood at the viewing port of the Terran diplomatic vessel Liberty, watching alien ships drift through space like massive metal predators. Each vessel was 3 times larger than any human ship he had ever seen. Their hulls gleamed with strange patterns that hurt his eyes to look at directly. After 30 years of military service, Jake had learned to trust his instincts. Right now, those instincts were screaming that this meeting was a trap. Behind him, Ambassador Lisa Kane adjusted her formal diplomatic uniform one final time. She had negotiated treaties with hostile alien races before, but never had she felt this kind of tension in the air. The Galactic Council had summoned humanity's representatives with unusual urgency. Their message had been brief and cold, offering no details about the purpose of this emergency session. "Admiral, are you ready?" Lisa asked, her voice steady despite the circumstances. Jake turned from the window, his weathered face showing no emotion. As ready as anyone can be when walking into the unknown. General Coleman's intelligence report suggests this isn't a standard diplomatic meeting. General Rick Coleman entered the conference room carrying a data pad filled with military care assessments. His expression was grim. The Council has assembled representatives from all 12 member species. That hasn't happened in over 50 years. Whatever they want to discuss, it's serious. Dr. Amy Foster, the team's chief xenobiologist, looked up from her cultural briefing notes. "The Zephyrians are leading this session. That's unusual. They normally prefer to stay in the background and let other species handle direct confrontation." Lisa nodded thoughtfully. "The Zephyrians only take charge when they want to make a strong statement. This doesn't bode well for humanity." The Liberty docked with the massive council station that hung in neutral space like a giant metal moon. The 4 humans walked through corridors that seemed designed to make smaller species feel insignificant. Everything was built on a scale that dwarfed human architecture. The walls displayed holographic art from dozens of alien cultures, a constant reminder of how young humanity was compared to these ancient civilizations. They entered the council chamber, a vast circular room with seating arranged in tiers that rose toward the ceiling. Representatives from 12 different alien species sat in their designated areas, their various forms creating a bizarre collection of shapes and colors. The humans took their seats in the small section reserved for newer galactic members. High, Chancellor Vexithara of the Zephyrian Empire rose from his elevated position at the center of the chamber. His tall, thin frame was covered in scales that shifted color with his emotions. Right now, those scales displayed deep red patterns that Dr. Foster knew indicated aggressive intentions. "Representatives of the Terran species," Vexithara began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation system. "You have been summoned to answer for your actions." Lisa stood up, maintaining diplomatic protocol. "High Chancellor, humanity is always willing to discuss any concerns the Council might have." Vexithara's scales darkened to an even deeper red. "Concerns? Your species has violated the fundamental principles of galactic civilization. You expand your territory without permission. You colonize worlds without consulting the Council. You build military vessels that threaten the peace we have maintained for centuries." Jake's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. This was Lisa's show, at least for now. "High Chancellor," Lisa replied calmly. "Humanity has followed all established protocols for colonization. We have settled only uninhabited worlds and have maintained peaceful relations with all species we have encountered." A creature that looked like a walking crystal formation spoke up from the Shard Collective's section. Its voice sounded like breaking glass. "Peaceful? Your species destroyed 3 of our mining stations in the Kepler system." Dr. Foster quickly accessed her files. She knew this was false. The Shard Collective had never operated in the Kepler system. Someone was lying, and she suspected it was intentional. General Coleman leaned forward slightly, his military training helping him spot the deception. The aliens were presenting fabricated evidence, which meant this entire session was planned in advance. They weren't here to discuss concerns. They were here to deliver an ultimatum. Vexithara activated a holographic display that showed supposed evidence of human aggression. The images were clearly manipulated, but they were presented as fact. Your species has proven itself to be a threat to galactic stability. The Council has reached a unanimous decision. Lisa felt her heart sink. A unanimous decision meant that even the species that had previously been friendly to humanity had turned against them. The Terran Empire will withdraw all military vessels from systems beyond your home solar system. Vexithara continued. You will dismantle your colonial settlements and return to Earth. You will accept Council oversight of all your future activities. You have 30 standard days to comply. The chamber fell silent. Lisa could feel the weight of 12 different species staring at her, waiting for humanity's response. She had been a diplomat for 15 years, but she had never faced anything like this. Jake's hand moved slightly toward his sidearm, a gesture so small that only General Coleman noticed it. The Admiral was thinking like a soldier, assessing threats and calculating odds. The numbers weren't good. High Chancellor, Lisa said carefully, this is a significant request. Humanity will need time to consider your proposal. Vexithara's scales shifted to a bright orange color that Dr. Foster recognized as satisfaction. You have 30 days. If you do not comply, the Council will take action to ensure galactic security. The threat was clear. Submit or face the combined military might of 12 advanced alien civilizations. As the session ended, the human delegation walked back to their ship in silence. Once they were safely aboard the Liberty and away from alien listening devices, General Coleman spoke first. They're not just asking us to step back, he said quietly. They want to cage us, keep us trapped in our own solar system like animals. In a zoo, Dr. Foster nodded grimly. The evidence they presented was fabricated. This entire session was theater. They made their decision before we even arrived. Jake stared out at the alien fleet surrounding them. They think we're just another young species they can bully into submission. They have no idea what humans are capable of when we're cornered. Lisa activated the secure communication system to contact Earth. This is Ambassador Kane reporting to Terran Command. The Council has delivered an ultimatum. We have 30 days to surrender everything we've built among the stars or face war with 12 alien civilizations. She paused, looking at her companions. I recommend we start preparing for war, because I know humanity well enough to know what our answer will be. As the Liberty began its journey back to human space, none of them noticed the small tracking devices that had been attached to their ship. The Council wanted to monitor humanity's response. They were about to learn that some species should never be underestimated. President Kate Sullivan stood before the massive windows of Terran High Command on Luna, looking down at Earth spinning slowly below. The blue marble that was humanity's home had never looked more precious or more vulnerable. In 3 days, the news of the Galactic Council's ultimatum had spread across every human world. The response had been immediate and clear. No surrender. Admiral Jake Morrison entered the command center carrying reports from across human space. His face was hard as steel, but Kate could see the fire burning in his eyes. After the humiliation at the Council station, Jake had thrown himself into military preparations with the intensity of a man seeking revenge. Madam President, Jake said, placing the datapad on her desk. Every colonial governor has responded. Every military commander has confirmed their readiness. Not one human world is willing to accept the Council's terms. Kate picked up the reports, scanning through messages from Mars, New Colorado, Freedom Station, and dozens of other human settlements scattered across the galaxy. The words were different, but the message was the same everywhere. Fight. General Rick Coleman walked in with Captain Ryan Brooks, commander of humanity's newest and most powerful warship, the Defiance. Ryan was young for a ship commander, only 35, but he had earned his position through skill and courage in the Proxima Wars. General Coleman has briefed me on Project Nightfall, Kate said. I have to admit, I'm impressed. When did we become so sneaky? Rick smiled grimly. The moment we realized that peaceful exploration wasn't going to be enough. While our diplomats were making friends, our intelligence services were making preparations. Commander Beth Taylor joined the group, still wearing her pilot suit from a training mission. She commanded Ghost Squadron, humanity's most elite fighter unit. Her pilots could fly circles around anything the alien species had ever built. The preliminary strikes went perfectly, Beth reported. We hit 3 Council supply depots in the Rigel sector. They never saw us coming. Their sensors couldn't even detect our ships until we opened fire. Jake nodded with satisfaction. Human stealth technology has advanced far beyond what the Council realizes. They still think we're using the same simple ships we had 20 years ago. Kate turned to address the room. Before I give our official response to the Council, I want to make sure everyone understands what we're choosing. This isn't just about refusing their demands. We're declaring war on 12 advanced alien civilizations. Are we really ready for that? Captain Brooks stepped forward. Madam President, the Defiance and her sister ships represent the best of human engineering. We've studied alien technology for decades. We know their weaknesses. More importantly, we know our strengths. Dr. Amy Foster, who had arrived from the diplomatic mission, added her voice. The Council members are overconfident. They've been the dominant powers for so long that they can't imagine being challenged. That gives us an advantage they don't expect. Kate looked around the room at these people who represented humanity's best. Military officers, diplomats, scientists, and engineers, all united in their determination to protect human independence. Very well, she said. Prepare the Senate for an emergency session. It's time to give the galaxy our answer. 2 hours later, Kate stood before the Terran Senate, with representatives attending both in person and through quantum communication from every human world. The chamber was packed, with every seat filled and people standing along the walls. The entire human species was watching. Senators, fellow humans, Kate began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber and across space to every human settlement. 3 days ago, the Galactic Council delivered an ultimatum to our species. They demand that we abandon the stars we have claimed through our own sweat and blood. They want us to retreat to Earth like frightened children hiding from bullies. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Kate waited for quiet before continuing. They call us aggressive. They say we threaten galactic peace. But what is our crime? We explored empty worlds and made them homes for our children. We built cities where only lifeless rock existed before. We turned barren planets into gardens. Is this aggression? Or is this the natural drive of a species that refuses to accept limits? The applause was thunderous. Kate could see the fire in the eyes of every person present. The Council believes they can intimidate us because we are young. They think we will submit because they are older and more numerous. They have forgotten something important about humanity. We did not claw our way from caves to starships only to cower before alien bullies. Now the entire chamber was on its feet, cheering and shouting support. I stand before you today to announce humanity's response to the Galactic Council's ultimatum. We reject their demands. We will not abandon our colonies. We will not retreat to our home system. We will not accept their supervision. If they want to stop human expansion, they will have to fight for it. The cheering continued for several minutes. When it finally died down, Kate delivered the words that would be remembered throughout human history. To the Galactic Council, I say this. You awakened a sleeping giant. You have united humanity as never before. You wanted to stop our expansion. You have guaranteed it will accelerate beyond your worst nightmares. You sought to contain us. You have ensured that human flags will fly over worlds you have never dreamed of. You demanded our submission. You will witness our ascension. As Kate finished her speech, Admiral Morrison was already implementing the next phase of Project Nightfall. Across the galaxy, sleeper agents embedded in alien worlds began activating. Cloaked human battle stations that had been disguised as asteroids for years suddenly came online. Commander Taylor's Ghost Squadron launched from hidden bases to begin precision strikes on Council military installations. Captain Brooks received his orders as Kate's speech ended. The Defiance and her battle group would spearhead humanity's response. Their target was the Council's main military depot in the Vega system. Dr. Foster coordinated with intelligence networks that had been mapping alien weaknesses for decades. Every species in the Council had enemies and internal conflicts that could be exploited. General Coleman activated military reserves that had been training in secret for years. Millions of human soldiers, sailors, and pilots were ready to fight for their species' freedom. The Galactic Council had expected submission. Instead, they had triggered the greatest military mobilization in human history. Across dozens of star systems, human forces prepared to show the galaxy what happened when you threatened humanity's future. The war for galactic dominance was about to begin, and the aliens had given humanity every advantage by underestimating their determination and preparation. The Council's ultimatum was about to crumble under the weight of human defiance. The Zephyrian war fleet emerged from hyperspace like a pack of metal wolves. High Chancellor Vexithera stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the human colony of New Dakota appear on his screens. The planet looked peaceful, with small cities scattered across green continents. He could see the orbital stations that humans used for mining and shipping. All of it would be destroyed within hours. "Begin the assault," Vexithera commanded. "Show these humans the price of defying the Council." Across the galaxy, 2 other massive fleets were launching similar attacks. The crystalline ships of the Shard Collective moved toward human mining operations in the asteroid belts near Wolf 359. Their diamond-hard hulls reflected starlight as they prepared to crush human industrial facilities. Meanwhile, the biomechanical vessels of the Hive construct approached the agricultural world of Green Valley, intent on destroying humanity's food production. On New Dakota, Colonel Dan Miller received the alert as alien ships filled his orbital sensors. He had been expecting this attack for days, ever since President Sullivan's speech reached the outer colonies. His garrison was small, only 3,000 soldiers and a handful of defensive platforms, but Dan had no intention of surrendering. "All units, battle stations," Dan ordered through the communication system. "Remember your training. The aliens have bigger ships, but we have something they don't. We're fighting for our homes." The first wave of Zephyrian attack craft screamed through New Dakota's atmosphere, their energy weapons lighting up the sky like deadly fireworks. They targeted the colonial defense grid, expecting to knock out human resistance quickly. The aliens had studied human military capabilities and calculated that a small garrison could not withstand their assault. They were about to learn their first lesson about human adaptability. Colonel Miller had spent months preparing for this moment. His soldiers had dug defensive positions that were invisible from orbit. They had positioned weapons in locations that the aliens would never expect. Most importantly, they had studied Zephyrian tactics from previous conflicts and identified weaknesses. As the alien fighters dove toward what appeared to be the main defensive complex, they flew directly into Dan's trap. Hidden missile launchers emerged from camouflaged positions, filling the air with projectiles that moved too fast for alien sensors to track effectively. The first wave of attackers was destroyed before they realized they had been deceived. "First, blood to humanity," Dan reported to Terran Command. "But they're just getting started." High Chancellor Vexithera watched his tactical display with growing anger. His scales shifted to deep purple, indicating both rage and confusion. Human resistance was far more organized than intelligence reports had suggested. These were not the panicked colonists he had expected to find. In the asteroid belts, the Shard Collective was having similar problems. Their massive ships approached human mining stations expecting to find industrial facilities protected by simple defensive systems. Instead, they discovered that the mining stations were heavily armed fortresses disguised as civilian installations. Captain Ryan Brooks commanded the human response from his battleship Defiance, which had been hiding among the asteroids for weeks. The aliens' crystalline ships were beautiful, but built for intimidation rather than combat effectiveness. Ryan had studied their design and identified critical flaws. "All ships, target their crystal joints," Ryan ordered his fleet. "Those pretty hulls shatter when you hit them in the right spots." The Defiance and her escorts emerged from their hiding places like sharks attacking from the deep. Human weapons, designed for maximum efficiency rather than impressive displays, tore through crystalline hulls that were more fragile than they appeared. The Shard Collective ships began breaking apart under concentrated fire. Meanwhile, Commander Beth Taylor was leading Ghost Squadron in hit-and-run attacks against the Hive construct fleet approaching Green Valley. The biomechanical ships were tough and could repair themselves, but they were also slow and predictable. Beth's pilots used their superior speed and maneuverability to strike at critical systems before disappearing back into space. "Their ships think like a hive mind," Beth reported during a brief lull in combat. They can't adapt to individual tactics. Every time we change our attack pattern, they need time to adjust. Admiral Jake Morrison coordinated the overall defense from his flagship Retribution, positioned to respond to whichever front needed reinforcement. He watched tactical displays showing 3 separate battles across dozens of star systems. The aliens had numerical superiority, but humans were proving more resourceful than expected. General Coleman, Jake called to his ground forces commander. "How are our colonial defenders holding up?" "Better than the aliens expected," Rick replied from his command center on Luna. "Colonel Miller has been sending them reports from New Dakota. Every human world is using similar tactics. The Council thought they were attacking helpless colonists. Instead, they're fighting prepared soldiers." The truth was becoming clear to both sides. The Galactic Council had based their strategy on outdated intelligence about human capabilities. They expected to face the same primitive technology that humanity had possessed 20 years earlier. Instead, they encountered weapons and tactics that had been developed specifically to counter alien advantages. On New Dakota, Colonel Miller's forces continued their desperate defense. They had lost ground, but they were making the aliens pay dearly for every advance. More importantly, they were buying time for reinforcements to arrive. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a message from Admiral Morrison. The relief fleet will arrive in 6 hours. Dan smiled grimly. "Tell the Admiral we'll still be here when he arrives. These aliens are tough, but they're not tougher than human stubbornness." The battle for New Dakota raged through the day and into the night. Zephyrian forces finally broke through the outer defenses, but they found that humans had prepared fallback positions throughout the colony. Every building became a fortress. Every street became a battlefield. High Chancellor Vex Thera realized that his quick victory was becoming a costly siege. His forces were taking casualties they had never expected against what should have been an easy target. Worse reports from the other fronts indicated similar problems. The Shard Collective was being outfought by human ships they had considered inferior. The Hive construct was being outmaneuvered by pilots who seemed to think 3 steps ahead of their opponents. As the first day of the Council's assault ended, both sides were learning important lessons. The aliens discovered that humans were far more dangerous than they had believed. Humanity learned that they could not only survive attacks by advanced alien civilizations, but could actually defeat them in direct combat. The war was just beginning, but already the balance was shifting. The Council had expected to crush human resistance quickly and efficiently. Instead, they found themselves locked in a grinding conflict against an enemy that refused to break. Admiral Morrison studied the battle reports and smiled. The aliens had made their first major mistake by underestimating human preparation and determination. Now it was time for humanity to show them what a real counterattack looked like. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the command center of his flagship Retribution, watching holographic displays that showed the entire galaxy. Red markers indicated Council military positions. Blue markers showed human forces. For the first time, since the war began, there were more blue markers than red ones. "Operation Prometheus is ready to launch," General Rick Coleman reported from Luna. "All strike teams are in position. Major Steve Parker's special forces have confirmed their targets on the alien homeworlds." Jake nodded grimly. The Council had tried to crush humanity with overwhelming force and failed. Now it was time to show them what humans could do when they stopped defending and started attacking. "Begin the operation," Jake ordered. "Let's teach these aliens what happens when they threaten Earth." Across the galaxy, human forces that had been hiding in the shadows for years suddenly revealed themselves. Cloaked battle stations dropped their disguises and began attacking Council supply lines. Sleeper agents on alien worlds activated communication jammers and sabotaged military installations. The Terran Empire was about to demonstrate the true extent of its reach. On the Zephyrian homeworld of Zephyros Prime, Major Steve Parker and his team of 20 Special Forces soldiers materialized from their stealth transport. They had been studying this planet for months, learning its layout and identifying weaknesses in its defenses. The Zephyrians had never imagined that humans could reach their capital world. "Remember the mission," Steve whispered to his team as they moved through the alien city. "We're not here to hurt civilians. We're here to send a message." The team split up, each group heading toward a different government building. Their targets were communication centers, military command posts, and the Council's local headquarters. They needed to disable the planet's ability to coordinate its military forces without causing unnecessary destruction. Steve's group reached the main communication hub, a massive crystal tower that handled all interstellar communications for the planet. Two Zephyrian guards stood at the entrance, their scaled faces showing boredom. They had never seen combat, and couldn't imagine any threat reaching their homeworld. The guards never knew what hit them. Steve's team used non-lethal stunning weapons to knock them unconscious, then slipped into the building. Within minutes, they had placed explosive charges on the main communication arrays. When the charges detonated, Zephyros Prime would be cut off from the rest of the galaxy. Similar operations were happening on two other Council homeworlds. Human special forces demonstrated that nowhere in Council space was truly safe from their reach. The psychological impact was devastating to alien morale. Meanwhile, Captain Ryan Brooks was leading the main fleet offensive against the Zephyrian war fleet that had attacked New Dakota. The aliens had expected human reinforcements, but they had not expected the humans to bring such overwhelming force. Brooks commanded a battle group of 30 ships, including several of humanity's newest dreadnoughts. "The Zephyrians are regrouping near the gas giant," Brooks reported to Admiral Morrison. "They're trying to use its gravity well as a defensive position." "Show them why that's a bad idea," Jake replied. "Humanity didn't conquer space by being afraid of a little gravity." Brooks smiled as he gave orders to his fleet. Human ships had been designed to operate in difficult conditions, unlike the elegant alien vessels that worked best in open space. The gas giant's gravity well would actually give the humans an advantage. The Battle of Rigel Prime began as the human fleet dove toward the gas giant at maximum speed. Zephyrian commanders watched in amazement as human ships performed maneuvers that should have torn them apart. The humans used the planet's gravity to accelerate their ships beyond normal limits, turning their entire fleet into a massive projectile. "All ships fire at will," Brooks ordered as his fleet screamed past the alien formation. "Let's show them what human engineering can do." The engagement lasted only minutes, but it destroyed the Zephyrian fleet's ability to continue offensive operations. Human weapons designed for maximum efficiency rather than impressive displays tore through alien hulls like paper. The survivors fled toward their home systems, carrying news of humanity's unexpected power. Commander Beth Taylor was leading her expanded strike group on a different kind of mission. Her target was the Council's main supply depot in the Arcturus system, a massive space station that supplied military operations across 3 sectors. Destroying it would cripple the alien war effort. "The station is heavily defended," Beth reported as her ships approached, "but the defenses are designed to stop large fleets, not small fast ships." Her fighters swept through the station's defensive grid like angry wasps, too fast and maneuverable for the automated systems to track effectively. They planted explosive charges on critical systems, then disappeared before the aliens could respond. "Charges placed," Beth reported. "Station will be destroyed in 30 minutes. All non-essential alien personnel should evacuate." The destruction of the supply depot sent shockwaves through the Council's military command. Their forces were running out of ammunition and spare parts, while human forces seemed to have unlimited resources. Dr. Amy Foster was coordinating the intelligence war from her position on Luna. Her network of alien contacts had grown into a sophisticated operation that was turning Council member species against each other. "The Shard Collective is questioning the Zephyrian leadership," she reported to Admiral Morrison. 3 minor species have already withdrawn from the war effort. The Council is fracturing." Jake studied the intelligence reports with satisfaction. The aliens had united against humanity, but their alliance was built on fear rather than trust. Once they started losing, that fear turned inward. General Coleman's forces were liberating human colonies that had been captured during the initial alien assault. Everywhere they went, they found the same pattern. Human defenders had made the toll, aliens paid dearly for their victories, and the occupying forces were demoralized and ready to surrender. The aliens are good at overwhelming weak opponents, Rick reported, but they don't know how to fight a real war against determined resistance. On New Dakota, Colonel Dan Miller was finally seeing the aliens retreat. His small garrison had held out for 6 days against overwhelming odds, and now Admiral Morrison's relief fleet was driving the Zephyrians off the planet. The colony was scarred but unbroken. Colonel Miller, Admiral Morrison's voice came through the communication system. Outstanding work. You've shown the galaxy what human courage looks like. Dan looked around at his exhausted but victorious soldiers. We just did what any humans would do, sir. We protected our home. As the second week of the war ended, the strategic situation had completely reversed. The Council's confident assault had been stopped cold. Their supply lines were cut, their communications were disrupted. Several member species were questioning whether the war was worth continuing. Most importantly, the galaxy was learning that humanity was not just another species to be managed. They were a force of nature that grew stronger under pressure. The Council's attempt to contain human expansion had backfired spectacularly. Admiral Morrison looked at the latest battle reports and smiled. The aliens had made their second major mistake by giving humanity a reason to unite and fight. Now they were about to learn what happened when you awakened a sleeping giant. The war was far from over, but the tide had turned. Humanity was no longer defending. They were conquering. President Kate Sullivan walked into the rebuilt Galactic Assembly Hall, but this time she was not a petitioner begging for acceptance. The hall had been redesigned with human architectural principles, making it more welcoming and less intimidating. Representatives from dozens of species rose as she entered, showing respect that had been earned through victory rather than granted through mercy. 6 months had passed since the Council's failed assault on humanity. The war had ended not with a massive final battle, but with a series of surrenders as alien species realized they could not win against human determination and superior tactics. The old Galactic Council no longer existed. In its place stood the Terran Accords, a new system of galactic governance with humanity at its center. Admiral Jake Morrison, now Fleet Admiral of the expanded Terran Navy, stood at Kate's side as she approached the speaker's platform. His uniform bore new decorations recognizing his role in humanity's victory. Behind them walked Ambassador Lisa Kane, who had been promoted to Secretary of Galactic Affairs, and General Rick Coleman, now Marshal of the Galactic Security Force. Beings of the galaxy, Kate began, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall and across space to worlds that had never known human authority before. We gather today not as conquerors and conquered, but as partners in building a better future. In the Zephyrian section, former High Chancellor Vexithara sat with his head bowed. His proud species had been the first to request human protection, after their military was destroyed and their homeworld threatened by internal rebellion. The very aliens who had demanded humanity's submission now begged for Terran advisors to help maintain order. The Shard Collective had suffered even worse fate. Their crystalline ships, once the pride of their civilization, lay in pieces across a dozen star systems. Captain Ryan Brooks, now Admiral Brooks, had methodically dismantled their fleet using tactics they never understood. The survivors had joined the Terran sphere of influence as junior partners, grateful for human protection against other threats. The old system failed because it was built on fear and dominance, Kate continued. Species were kept in line through threats and intimidation. The strong bullied the weak, and everyone lived in constant fear of those above them in the hierarchy. Dr. Amy Foster, now Director of Galactic Intelligence, watched the alien representatives from her position in the human section. Her networks had grown beyond anything the old council had possessed. Former enemies now competed to provide intelligence to human authorities, hoping to gain favor with their new protectors. Under the Terran Accords, every species has rights that cannot be taken away, Kate announced. Every world has the freedom to govern itself according to its own traditions. Every civilization has the opportunity to grow and prosper under human protection. The irony was not lost on anyone present. The Council had tried to limit human expansion, to prevent them from becoming a threat. Instead, Their actions had accelerated human growth beyond their worst nightmares. Humanity now controlled more territory than the old council had ever dreamed of possessing. Commander Beth Taylor, now General Taylor and head of Galactic Strike Command, supervised the integration of alien military units into the new Terran forces. Former enemies fought alongside human soldiers, serving under human officers who had proven their superiority in battle. The arrangement worked because humans treated their alien partners with respect rather than contempt. Some of you may wonder about humanity's intentions, Kate said, addressing concerns that she knew many species harbored. You have seen our military power. You have witnessed our ability to project force across the galaxy. What will we do with this power? Marshal Coleman's security forces included soldiers from 8 different species, all working together under human leadership. The old council had never achieved such cooperation because they ruled through fear. Humans ruled through competence and respect, earning loyalty that could never be forced. We will do what humans have always done, Kate answered her own question. We will explore, we will build, we will grow, but we will not do these things alone. Every species that joins the Terran sphere of influence becomes part of humanity's greatest adventure. Admiral Morrison received reports from the expanding frontier, where human exploration fleets pushed deeper into unknown space than any previous expedition had dared to venture. Each new discovery was shared with allied species, creating a sense of common purpose that the old council had never fostered. The transformation was remarkable. Trade flowed freely between worlds that had been enemies for centuries. Scientific cooperation produced advances that benefited everyone. Most importantly, the constant fear of war that had dominated galactic politics for millennia was finally ending. To those species that have not yet joined the Terran Accords, Kate said, looking toward the few remaining independent delegations, our offer remains open. Humanity does not seek to conquer or control. We seek to protect and improve. Several representatives from unaligned worlds nodded thoughtfully. They had watched the transformation of former council members and seen the benefits of human leadership. Fear was being replaced by prosperity. Oppression was being replaced by opportunity. Ambassador Kane coordinated the diplomatic integration of new member species. The process was voluntary but attractive. Worlds that joined the Terran sphere gained access to human technology, military protection, and economic opportunities that they could never achieve alone. More importantly, they gained something the old council had never offered: hope for a better future. The galaxy stands at a crossroads, Kate continued. We can return to the old ways of fear and conflict, or we can move forward together toward a future of peace and prosperity. Humanity chooses the path of growth and cooperation. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Species after species rose to pledge their support for the Terran Accords. Even former council hardliners recognized that human leadership offered benefits that the old system had never provided. As the session ended, Kate looked around the hall that had once been used to deliver humanity's ultimatum. Now it served as the center of a galactic government that stretched across more star systems than any previous civilization had controlled. The transformation was complete. Admiral Morrison coordinated the final integration of alien fleets into the Terran Navy. Former enemies now served as allies, their ships bearing human insignia alongside their own cultural symbols. The combined fleet was the largest and most powerful force the galaxy had ever seen. General Taylor's forces maintained peace across hundreds of worlds, their presence welcomed rather than feared. Human officers led mixed units that represented the best soldiers from dozens of species. The old council's military had been built on intimidation. The Terran forces were built on competence and mutual respect. Dr. Foster's intelligence networks provided early warning of threats that might challenge the new order. But increasingly, those threats came from outside the galaxy, rather than within it. Humanity had brought such stability to their sphere of influence that internal conflicts were becoming rare. The final irony was the most satisfying. The Council's ultimatum had been designed to prevent human expansion. Instead, it had triggered the greatest period of growth in human history. Terran flags now flew over worlds that the old Council had never even discovered. As President Sullivan left the assembly hall, She paused to look at a holographic display showing the current extent of human influence. Blue markers covered nearly half the galaxy, with more being added every day. The sleeping giant was fully awake now, and its reach extended to the very edge of known space. The Galactic Council's ultimatum had indeed crumbled, exactly as the title promised. In its place rose something far greater, a galactic empire built on human values of courage, determination, and the refusal to accept limits. The galaxy would never be the same.